Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving straight into a seriously fascinating piece of urban history today. We're going to look closely at one of America's most unique transit experiments, the rise, the peak, and the ultimate fall of Portland, Oregon's free rail zone. If you're a focused learner, someone who just loves figuring out how cities tick, how they evolve, and the bold ideas that shape them, you are absolutely going to love the journey we're about to take together.
Right off the bat, I want you to picture this. Imagine hopping onto a high-speed light rail train right outside a major NBA arena. The crowd is absolutely buzzing, you've just soaked in the atmosphere, and you decide, hey, let's ride clear across town to do some shopping. So you step off the train a few stops later, completely legally, without ever once buying a ticket? No way, right? Well, for nearly 40 years, that wasn't some hypothetical dream, and it definitely wasn't a secret transit hack that only the locals whispered about. It was a daily reality for literally anyone navigating the city.
So the crucial point is understanding exactly what this policy actually was. It was famously known as Fareless Square. Basically, Fareless Square was an official transit policy in Portland that allowed completely free rides within a very specific designated downtown boundary. And this ran for almost 4 whole decades. It was kind of like a giant free pass zone. If your entire trip, from the moment you stepped on to the moment you stepped off, started and ended inside this specific zone, you didn't pay a single dime.
Section 1. The Birth of Fareless Square, Solving 1970s Urban Problems.
Now, to really wrap our heads around why a major American city would essentially just give away public transit for free, we've got to travel back in time a bit to set the stage. It was the 1970s. Downtown Portland, much like a lot of American cities back then, was hitting some major roadblocks. We're talking intense traffic congestion clogging the streets, heavy air pollution, and a really worrying drop in retail foot traffic. Simply put, people were leaving the city center. So to counter this urban decay, Portland's transit agency, TriMet, came up with a brilliantly simple yet incredibly bold mandate: bring people back to the city center. Their big fix to revitalize the core was to introduce this free transit zone rule. At first, it was just for buses, and the rule was beautifully straightforward. As long as you stayed inside that designated boundary, the ride was completely free of charge. You only opened your wallet if your ride took you outside the zone line. It was a massive, immediate incentive to get people out of their personal cars, walking the streets, and visiting local businesses again.
Let's move to and see how this builds over the decades through these 4 critical milestones. The whole thing officially kicks off in 1975 when Fareless Square successfully launched for the city's bus routes. Jump ahead over a decade to 1986, Portland rolls out its highly anticipated Max Light Rail system, and boom, the free zone is cleverly expanded to include these brand new trains. Fast forward again to 2001, and the entire system gets modernized and rebranded specifically as the Free Rail Zone. But as with a lot of great urban experiments, economic realities eventually set in. By September 1, 2012, the program officially closed its doors for good.
Section 2. The East Side Connector, Rose Quarter to Lloyd Center Case Study.
Okay, let's dive into this. By 2001, the boundaries of the zone were strategically drawn to connect the major transit hubs on both sides of the Willamette River. Let's look at a real-world case study on the east side to see how this actually played out for the everyday rider. The free zone extended directly across the steel bridge. Step 1, you board the train at the Rose Quarter Transit Center right outside the arena where the Trailblazers play. Step 2, you smoothly pass the Oregon Convention Center. Step 3, you cruise right past 7th Avenue. And step 4, you arrive right at the Lloyd Center station, specifically near the NE 11th Avenue JCPenney. This short 3 to 4 stop stretch was incredibly efficient for moving people around this specific district.
And the price tag for all of this? $0. Literally nothing. Just think about how incredibly convenient that is for navigating an urban center. Say you're a fan attending a basketball game, or maybe a downtown worker on your lunch break. You could jump on the train at the arena, ride a few blocks east, do some shopping at JCPenney or eat at the Lloyd Center Mall, and then take the train right back to where you started. And you could do all of that without ever pulling a wallet out of your pocket. It completely removed the friction of moving through the city.
Section 3. Why the free rides ended. The harsh economic realities of 2012.
Now, as amazing as that $0 price tag was for the community, we gotta ask the inevitable question: what happened? Why did a wildly popular 40-year transit tradition suddenly come to a halt? Well, it ultimately came down to the very real, very harsh budget complications that TriMet was forced to confront as they looked toward the future of their network. And this brilliantly illustrates the compound issues they were facing. First, they were staring down severe budget shortfalls.
Second, they were dealing with consistently rising operational costs just to keep the basic trains and buses running every day. Third, from a logistical standpoint, it had become a nightmare to enforce tickets right at the boundary lines where the free zone ended. And finally, because of all these factors combined, there was a critical, urgent need to generate millions of dollars in new revenue just to maintain baseline service levels. They simply had no choice but to adapt.
So this brings us to a pretty stark comparison between the past and the present of Portland's transit. From 1975 all the way up to 2012, riders experienced an era where they enjoyed free trips across the city center as long as they stayed within those specific Fairless Square boundaries. Today, however, the modern reality is completely different. Those free rides from the Rose Garden to JCPenney are strictly history. In the present day, riding the MAX anywhere on the system requires a standard fare. There are no more free zones. Everyone has to buy a ticket to ride.
But even though the program was officially retired, the legacy of Fairless Square is absolutely crucial to study. It remains one of the boldest experiments in American urban transit. It's this fascinating reminder of a time when a major U.S. city tried something completely out of the box to solve downtown decay. And this matters on a macro level, you know? It shows us what's structurally possible when urban planners decide to prioritize moving people freely over immediate fare collection in order to revitalize a city's core.
Which leaves us with a really thought-provoking question to consider as we wrap up this explainer. Will modern cities ever attempt bold, free transit experiments like this again? As cities today grapple with their own new sets of challenges, from severe traffic congestion to post-pandemic economic revitalization, could we ever see a return to the philosophy of Fairless Square? It's a fascinating question about the future of our urban infrastructure, and one I highly encourage you all to think about. Thanks so much for joining me to explore this topic today, and keep learning.